Welcome to An Artist Journey, the podcast about creating and thriving as an artist. I'm your host, Malcolm Dewey, a full-time artist, and I'm living the artist's life. So let's begin. Welcome to An Artist Journey podcast. Today I'm happy to have as a special guest Gavin Van Winsen, Managing Director of Winsen's Canvases, South Africa's leading manufacturer of artist canvases. Welcome, Gavin.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks for the kind intro. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. As you know, I've been listening to your podcast, and it's nice to be on this side of the mic.
That's a pleasure, Gavin, and good to have you. Well, I'm going to launch straight in and ask you, tell us a bit more about Winsen's Canvases' story and how it came about and how the business started.
Yes, it's an interesting story and something that you wouldn't expect. It really started with my uncle, Gavin Van Winsen. Some of the artists will actually still remember him, and this is going on about 30 plus years now. He had a neighbor, the same famous South African cricketer, Spook Hanley, or Rupert Hanley as most people know him. I think what a lot of people didn't know was that he was also an artist. So I don't exactly know how the interaction happened, but apparently he invited my uncle over, and I can imagine over a beer asked him whether he would help him make an awning over his doorway, which my uncle obligingly did, being neighborly.
Okay.
He comes from an engineering background, so I think this was up his alley. What I suspect happened is that my uncle used cotton for the awning. And Spook recognized this and said, well, look, why don't you try and make me a canvas? And that's really how it started. That was customer one in a sense. I think Spook must have been very happy with that first canvas and started telling his other artist friends. And yes. It really just started from that. So it wasn't preconceived at all. It really came across from this quite serendipitous interaction, which I guess is the way most small businesses start. But it's a nice story, and it's interesting to think that that's how we got going 30 plus years ago.
Right. So your uncle saw an opportunity.
Yes.
And just ran with it. Yes.
At the time, and he told me this later, is that the artists, at least in the Gauteng, or at the time it was the Transvaal, Joburg area, really didn't have access to good materials, at least canvases. At the time, there would have been sanctions in the country. So he obviously recognized that there's an opportunity here. And it must have been because it was very well received. You know, he started really out of his garage, and it reached a point where he decided, okay, let's make a go of this and quit his day job, so to speak. But he was a one-man show. He did everything himself.
So I imagine the business grew steadily. How did you get to join the business, Gavin?
That's also something I didn't see coming. What actually happened is in 94, my uncle immigrated to Perth, and he sold the company to my parents. I think that was a time when there was a lot of uncertainty, and he was part of that mass exodus. My parents took it on, and it was nice that it did get sold within the family, and it could keep the Van Winsen name. And they ran with it. My parents, in retrospect, made a great team. They both had a deep care for the artist. My mom was a complete extrovert. My dad, also coming from an engineering background, did a lot of the grunt work of putting in systems, creating processes, really trying to get the business something that wasn't just a mom and pop operation, something that was better able to serve the artist. But it was very humble beginnings. We had to do everything. We had to make our own machinery. We had to write programs from scratch. In fact, that's still how we operate now. It was you had to work quite lean and mean. So everything we did was, or at least everything that drove him at the time, was to try work cost effectively. And it kind of underlying this whole lot was to keep the product affordable, and that's what drove him at the time. And it was this wonderful relationship that they, over the years, had with the artists, and they really got to know them personally. And in fact, today, they still ask me how your parents doing. So I finished my engineering degree, and I joined the company in 2006. Fortunately, I came into a running business, and I really had to just keep doing what we have always been doing, but try and improve on it. So as what happens when you come fresh out of college, you know nothing about nothing, and I tried to learn as best I could on the fly. And in fact, I'm still learning all the time today, and it's been a journey. I'm beginning to enjoy the business now. It's wonderful working with artists. It's got the problems that all small companies have. But right. We've got a good team at the moment. We've got some great people that we're working with. Yeah, as I sit here now, I'm feeling very optimistic about where we're at.
Oh, that's excellent. Gavin, you mentioned you graduated with engineering degree, and I'm just wondering what the connection is there between manufacturing canvases.
Do I get to use any of my engineering? Yes, I often get that question. In fact, the question I get more often is whether I can paint. I mean, I guess you never really know what you use of your studies, but I do. I am essentially an engineer at heart, which does afford me the opportunity to work on machines, to have a critical thinking with processes, with systems, be very critical of the numbers. But you have to learn to be a little bit of everything. You got to try have good finances, have a good product, get your head around marketing practices. But we are fortunately we are a family business, and affords me some slack. Our business has never been about ruthless practice. It's been very much about having a personal relationship with the artist, and that's been good.
So I imagine you grew up, though, with seeing your parents involved in the business, your uncle as well, and it must have been a regular part of your life as well, seeing these canvases and artists coming back and forth.
Yes. We operated out of a house. I was a little kid running around, and I remember so vividly these canvases that lined our passageway and our lounge, and artists used to come and visit us and talk to us, and I guess it must have had an effect on me, and I was being exposed to this world. So studying engineering, I never thought I would get into the business, but I'm glad I did. It's nice to be part of this industry. But yeah, it was very humble beginnings out of a home. We're now able to operate out of a factory, and
just listening to you talking about your engineering background and you mentioning that one needs to wear different hats, and I think what you're saying is very true for artists listening as well.
Yes,
you need to not only be a good artist, but you need to put on a business hat as well.
Yes, I think the days of the luxury, I guess, of just being able to sit at your easel and paint are gone. Particularly our artists have to put significant amount of time into marketing themselves, getting out there. Yeah, you've got to be almost a jack of all trades, I guess, to be able to cut it.
Right.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
Gavin, can you tell us a bit more about the products that Winsen's produces and where people can get in touch with you guys?
Yes, our main product is a custom-sized, custom-made canvas. And that's really where our niche is where an artist can come to us with, we can make the exact size that they want, have some choice with cloth type, and in particular some choice with their finish. Right. So that's our core business, and that's what we mostly do during any working day. What became a natural progression of that was to restretch original artworks. These would typically come from the galleries or even the artists themselves. And interestingly, that side of the business is growing. Possibly going to overtake canvases. We'll have to see what happens. But a lot of canvases coming in rolled form from the galleries, from the artists, where they need to be restretched and put onto a stretcher frame. It is quite it can be tricky. The artworks that we are dealing with can be very expensive, and
Yes.
sometimes they're not in the best condition. So we've had to be very careful about the working environment, the way we handle artworks. But it's been good. We've been forced to learn skills about stretching that otherwise we wouldn't have had to have learnt. So those are the two main things. I think the next biggest part of the business would be the custom gilded frames that you would have seen on the website.
Right.
But we deal directly with the artist. You won't find any of our products in the art shops, and we've been quite intentional about keeping it that way. The best way to always get hold of us is to pick up the phone, but we are developing the online component of our website, and guys can order and get most of their information from our website. We've been putting quite a bit of work into that.
Right. I can see from your website, Gavin, that you can select the size and etc., and just send a request through so that people can get hold of you quite quickly that way. Gavin, over the years, I'm sure you've dealt with many great artists.
Yes.
Can you tell us any memorable stories or fulfilling experiences you've had with some of these characters?
Just purely from hanging out with them, you do get to know the artists more than the general public. There's been some varied experiences, some good, some interesting. One that always I think I'll take to my grave is when I was asked. In fact, I just joined the business, so I was quite young and vulnerable and wet behind the ears. Anyway, I like to go and do some deliveries myself, and I went to go visit this lady artist, and as they do, they invite you up for a cup of coffee, and I sat there, and then she started looking at me and said, "Listen, won't you take off your clothes so that I can paint you?" So I thought, okay. I had to kind of take a moment there and said, "Did I hear you correct?" She says, "No, we'll do a photo shoot, and we're going to make this wonderful painting." And so I guess, what do you do? I thought, oh, okay. I guess you're the customer. If you want me to strip, I'll strip. Anyway, she was very gracious, and as I was unbuttoning my jeans, she says, "No, you can keep those on." So I sighed a breath of relief. But I'm actually surprised of how far I was willing to go. Anyway, what ensued was this very intense photo shoot of me holding these various poses. I had no idea where this was all going. And in fact, she said, "Thank you very much, and you'll see the painting." And the next time I saw that painting was at the Joburg Art Fair, which, as you know, is quite a big event. Painting was massive. It was a ginormous canvas, which we'd obviously made, but I was painted literally 1-to-1 life size, holding various poses. And I actually need to show you the image, the photo one day of the artwork. But I'm doing various acts of one. I'm spearing a leopard. The other one, I'm grabbing a lady who's trying to escape my grasp. It looks like I'm about to do all kinds of horror nasties to her. So I stood there in front of this painting, looking at this lot. And a gentleman stood next to me, and he started looking at the painting, then looking at me and looking at the painting. Oh. And I could see that he was beginning to make the connection here. Needless to say, I didn't spend very long at the Joburg Art Fair.
Yes.
But it was quite an experience for me, and something that will stay in my memory.
Well, you had a new career option there, Gavin.
I wonder, if the canvas thing doesn't work out, I can always go into male model.
Another example of an artist economizing very wisely and using resources available.
Yes.
Even if it's the delivery guy.
Yes, I realized she didn't have to pay for anybody. There it was. So in fact, we don't just do canvases. If you need me to take off my clothes, then I will. Apparently, I'm very willing to oblige.
Well done.
At no charge. It's a free service.
Our business is going to go up.
We'll see.
Well, moving on to a little bit more mundane subject, Gavin, I'm curious about the wide range of Belgian linen canvases that you offer, and I think Winsen's only place I've been able to access so many different types of Belgian linen. What is so special about it compared to the regular cotton range?
Yes, Belgium linens. Most artists would recognize the name. In fact, you give them a linen to paint on, and you can just see how they just love it. Their eyes light up. You would have experienced this for yourself with your massive amount of experience. It just paints beautifully. The way the paint takes onto the canvas, the irregularity of the weave. There's something very organic about a linen. It carries a history that's been trusted. This is going back to the time of the old masters where they worked on. It is a beautiful material. It's got a lovely color. What's nice today is that we've got a very wide range of linens. Density of weave, the roughness, the preparation type. You can be very specific about what you would like to paint on, and invariably there'll be a linen to suit your needs. So it's a big range, and the sample books that I get out of Belgium are testament to this. So I've actually had the opportunity to go visit the factories in Belgium and see how they prepare the canvas. And it's interesting for me that it's not as mechanized as what I thought it would be. They're still doing a lot of the sizing and priming by hand, drying, and it's still using the same materials they were using a few decades back.
Yes.
So it is lovely material. Having said that, the cotton duck and the polyester cloth, the two local cloths, do the job very well. In fact, most artists are still working on cotton. It's a very versatile cloth. But yeah, I must say, if I'm to be critical of the whole product range, I tend to gravitate towards the polyester. Just from the tests that I've been doing in the factory and what I've seen other artists do with it, it seems to be the most stable out of all the cloths. It doesn't suffer from getting slack or having any of the problems that cotton or even linen has, like possible mildew or bacteria.
Yes.
Not that happens often, but it is nice today that we've got such variety of materials to work with: the linens, the cotton, and the polyester.
That is a nice balance between the modern materials, or if you want to have something that is a bit more traditional or a bit more romantic, I suppose, then you can paint on the same stuff the old masters used. That's great.
The linens are unfortunately expensive, and that's why, as you say, it is nice to be able to have that range if you want to work on local cloths. That you still got a good material.
Looking on your website as well, and I'm seeing some amazing canvas creations and obviously very interesting commissions that you've had over the years. Some massive canvases as well. What has been the largest canvas you've had to deal with? Yeah,
it's we had to make a very large one this year, in fact, which is quite recent. We have an artist, Lionel Smith, down in the Western Cape. He wanted to see how big we could actually go. One of those open-ended questions. The timing was actually quite good because we had just developed an aluminium profile. It was that we were actually still experimenting with, and I thought, well, this aluminium would actually be quite good product to use for making a very large canvas. We just wouldn't have the strength. So anyway, it was a pilot project, and we were limited to the width of the canvas, which was 3 meters. Final size that we came up with was 2.8 by 6 meters. It might be difficult to imagine how big that is, but it's big. I'd say probably the size of a double garage door, if not bigger.
Yeah, easily.
When we had this thing standing upright, I thought, oh, this is big. And then the next problem came is, how are we going to transport this massive canvas? It just so happened that the largest flatbed truck we could hire was just over 6 meters. So this thing managed to get in the back there with the doors only just closing. And it made it all the way down to the Western Cape in one piece. In fact, I got the opportunity to see the canvas yesterday afternoon. I'm down here at the moment, and it's still perfectly dead straight, which is wonderful about using aluminium. But it was a fun project, and it's nice to see what is possible.
It'd be great to see the final result. I hope you get a picture of that. Yes,
I hope so too. I think he's going to end up using a lot of paint to cover it.
Lots of paint and a big brush.
Yes. It's interesting how artists are beginning to push the boundaries these days, and I see much more experimentation lately, at least within the last 12 months, than what I've seen previously. Especially on different shape canvases. We've got another artist here, Zander Blom, who paints on the rear side of a linen and gets some very interesting and beautiful effects on that. And guys really just thinking beyond the traditional shapes and using canvases in ways that I actually never conceived. So it's keeping us on our toes, and it is interesting, and it's forcing us to also think about different shapes as well.
Oh, that's excellent. I think sometimes as local artists, if I can just comment on that, is that we think everything is happening overseas, but I think a lot of South Africans are doing unusual work and groundbreaking work as well. I'm sure you've observed some of that yourself.
It's interesting to see guys how well their work is being received overseas. Places like Basel in Germany, and they're doing very, very well. So I think by world standards, we've got fantastic talent in this country. There's no doubt about it. I think the world is beginning to recognize this. We've got artists exhibiting in America, in Perth, in Australia, in Europe. It seems to be growing, and it's encouraging to see. And it's nice to see how artists, how the type of work is being received overseas. I suspect it's something that they ordinarily wouldn't get locally.
True. And what you say sort of leads me to my next thought, and how artists are dealing with the economic pressures of these times. And
yes.
I wanted to also ask you about Winsen's canvases have been around for a long time now, since 1986, which speaks volumes about its ability to sustain itself through ups and downs. And what would you say the secret to business success has been for Winsen's?
Yes. I mean, at the heart of it, I think we live by the grace of God. We are just grateful to still be in business. But you're absolutely right. It's been a difficult couple of years. We certainly feel it as well. We're in the same boat as the artist. I think for us, it's been quite important to find ways in which we can keep our product price down. The temptation is just to pass on any supply increases onto the artist. That would probably be the easiest thing to do, but it's the most lazy. So we try to spend a significant amount of our time and resources to find ways of working better without trying to compromise on the quality. It's all very well using the best wood, the best canvas, the best primer, but we don't want to become unaffordable. That's where we're at the moment. Offer a very good product, have a good service at a fair price.
Right.
It's not always easy, and you want to watch for consistency from your suppliers, from your own manufacturing techniques.
Yeah, what we've seen, I'm sure most artists going to the local art shop and they come across a lot of the imported canvases they seem on the face of it to be quite cheap.
Yes.
But when comparing the authentic craftsman-made canvas that you produce and these imported varieties, there's a vast difference in quality. I think you've probably seen a few horror stories yourself with poorly made imported canvases as well.
Yes, you've exactly hit the nail on the head. You can go to an art shop and you can buy a canvas relatively cheaply. And to be honest, I would suspect that it does the job on the smaller sizes. But when you start getting onto anything very large, you face the danger of canvas bending or warping or possibly running into problems with a thin material. I think for part of the challenge for us will be to educate the artist on what a good and a bad canvas is. They might go for something slightly cheaper, and if you want to do an important work and paint it onto a substrate that's not gonna last, then you're gonna regret it later. And this is part of the process, is just to educate the artist. We'll see. Hopefully that we can keep our niche in the market, where we do make a product that is better that you can get anywhere else. And we've got to work hard at keeping that quality up there, because I believe it is important for the artist, especially any artist worth their salt.
Exactly. From an artist's point of view, the canvas is is not simply another piece of equipment or just treated like a piece of stationery or something. There's something special about a fine-made canvas.
I had an interesting experience. I went to the Van Gogh Museum some years back, and I got to see the materials that Vincent van Gogh worked on. It was a wonderful, wonderful exhibition to see these works. They had one section where they actually showed the canvases that he worked on and the stretcher frames and the stretcher bars. And what struck me is that the way a canvas is made now and then actually hasn't changed that much. There's something, and I kind of like that. There's something beautiful about this product. We're dealing with natural materials here like wood and canvas, primer, and there's something very beautiful about the canvas.
Right.
And for us, I see it as something more than, as you mentioned, the materials that the artist works on. Obviously, he's going to use good brushes and good paints. But the canvas is actually the support on which the artwork lives. And it's a critical piece of the final artwork. For us, we realize this, and we take a real sense of pride in seeing a final artwork that's been painted on our canvas, because it, in a small way, we feel like we've been part of this process. But I love that we manufacture something that gives a tangible product that you can smell and touch and see, and that it's as an object in itself, it's a beautiful thing.
That's very true. There's a real sensory thing about the canvases, and I find even especially with the Belgian ones, they have a certain smell to them as well, which you have to be alone in your studio and just otherwise people think you're acting a bit weird, but
that you're high on your terps again.
They are, yes, they are just lovely things to work with.
Especially the oil prime linens, that's got that, which you've also been recently working on. It's got a very distinctive smell, and it just fills the studio. I think it's like catnip for artists. I just love it.
Just staying with the canvas quality and etc. It's one thing to have a good quality canvas. Is there any special care instructions that we should keep in mind? I'm thinking also with collectors once they take delivery of a painting.
Yes.
Pretty much something they can just hang up and forget about, or some things they should look out for to make sure their canvas lasts for many years.
Yes. Well, you've touched on something else that's very important, is why canvas is so good for collectors. For exactly that, it's easy for them to transport and to hang.
Right.
And as a canvas, as a support structure to work with, is very conducive for, at least especially for overseas purchases. They can buy it and take it off the stretcher frame and roll it up and take it back. And that's exactly it. The question is, will it be safe to take this artwork off the stretcher frame, roll it into a tube, and for the artist, or at least for the collector, to take it back home? And from my experience, I've seen that the canvas, especially those done in acrylics, are very flexible and quite hardy. In fact, we get a lot of artworks coming from the galleries that have come in a tube, and when you unroll them, generally, unless it's being painted very thick in oils that have dried up, they're in good shape. Yes. It's been something that we've been giving some airtime to as well. I recently did a whole batch of canvases, primed them, painted them, and I've left them out in the sun on my porch at home. And I'm trying to do an accelerated age testing where I see how long will it take before the primer cracks or there's a brittleness in the paint. And that's going on some months now. It's been exposed to the direct sun and the rain and so forth. And I'm happy to see that that canvases are in good shape. I know we've got some swabs dating back from 92 where we did similar tests. Fortunately, and I think for us the flexibility in the primers is quite critical here, and there's still that we're still seeing. So yes. The canvases are hardy. Particularly hardier than what you might suspect. Look, first prize is always going to be not to take the canvas off the stretcher frame. You don't want to release any of the tensions that are in the cloth. But obviously it's easier to transport in a tube, and it can be done. There are some practices that you should follow, such as rolling the painting with the painted surface on the outside, and of course on a wider tube as possible. But yes, it can be, with some common sense, it can be safely done.
Just want to touch as a point of interest, the wedges on the back of the canvas. Should that be something collectors should worry about?
The wedges, and you'll see them even in the canvases that you buy in the art shops, they'll come with a little packet of plastic wedges.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well they work. But
they don't work.
They don't work. And in fact, people now expect to see them, whether they know what it does or not, I'm not sure. But it does serve an important function, especially with cotton and polyester. What you can see with changing seasons or changing temperature or humidity is that the canvas relaxes. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen. The canvas could become quite floppy, in which case you turn it around and take a little hammer and you tap in the wedges. And they don't need it to be tapped in very far, and then the whole stretcher frame tightens up. This is the point of why a stretcher frame is called a strainer, is exactly this, is that the corners can expand. It's not a fixed frame. So that in any lifetime, at any time in the lifetime of that canvas, the wedges can be tapped and the whole canvas be made tight. And it's a safe process. It's going to be almost impossible to tap in those wedges so hard that the canvas tears. But yes, I think it is necessary. In fact, if a canvas ever bends, there's also a technique of tapping in the wedges that'll straighten the whole canvas out.
I see. We touched a bit earlier on your gilded frames that you make, and
yes.
I do find them some of the most beautiful things. And I'm sure all artists would covet these handmade frames. Tell us a little bit more about how that came about and how they put together.
It's been a particularly fun part of what we do as well, and particularly satisfying to get an artwork and to come up with a molding for that artwork and to give it a very specific gold or silver leafing with washes. Specifically for that artwork is a process, and you can end up with something that's very beautiful. It came about also rather by accident. My dad was visiting our artist John Mayer, and at the time I think he was having some difficulties with his frame. He says, "Look, would you guys try make up a molding for me?" He actually wanted a signature molding that nobody else in the market had. And they sat down together and they looked at some profiles. We said, "Yeah, let's have a go at this." They came up with a profile called JM1, John Mayer 1, and that's how it started. What we saw is that other artists also wanted their own signature molding, and so the range over a many number of years, started to expand. What was unique is that the frame was specifically designed for that artwork. So it wasn't your typical cut and join framing that you see, but something that was specifically gilded, specifically colored for that artwork. So very low volume. Yeah, that's how it came about. As we are now, the range has grown. It's still fairly limited. And we still have these signature moldings, and artists can come to us and we can sit down together and look at profiles and come up with something for them. I'm glad you still appreciate framing. It's encouraging to hear there's guys are seeing the expense of framing and deciding to leave artworks unframed. But having said that, I still believe that artwork with a frame can really help an artwork or decrease its perceived value.
Yeah, no, a good frame really does finish it off just right, and it creates more of an event out of that painting. So it's definitely true.
Yes, I must say the trends are changing. Very little gold leafing is being requested. It's a lot of silver leaf and very clean, crisp frames, almost white finishes. But it's changing all the time, and we'll see which way the trends go. But actually, your starting point should be the artwork.
Right. Gavin, I've been looking also on your Facebook page of Winsen's canvases, and there's some nice photos of where Winsen's have been providing canvases to some up-and-coming artists or perhaps artists that haven't got the financial means at their disposal, which looks like a great initiative. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's something that we should have been. I'm not sure why we haven't been doing more of this. It's kind of obvious. We develop a small pile of wood and canvas from making custom sizes, and it's quite easy for us to make up small to medium-sized canvases, even linens. Really, just give these away to various causes or various artists. At least over the last 2 years, we've been trying to put a concerted effort towards this. And when you start to look, you see that there's opportunity everywhere. For example, the foot and mouth painters, I think they're down in your part of the world. They've been a great organization to be associated with, and they absolutely do phenomenal work. It's inspiring to see what they do on our canvases. And there's various schools that do support emerging artists, and for us to be able to send canvases their direction is intrinsically very motivating. I think for us, it's we're not expecting anything to come of it. It's a way that we can help give back to the art community. You never know. One day, maybe one of these artists will become rich and famous, and they'll remember us.
That is just the thing. You never know that your contribution may go a long way to getting somebody starting off a new career. In a country where we need so many people to be self-employed, will certainly help.
Yes.
Any artists that need this help,
Exactly. And I think underlying it is there is an empathy for the artist there, especially from us as a company. It's, materials are expensive, paints are expensive, brushes are expensive. Winson's canvas is not a cheap and nasty product. We've got to try help where we can. And there's the wonderful thing about living in this country is that there is opportunity, and we can help. There are some very good emerging artists coming up, and they just need an opportunity, a little foot up, and hopefully we can be a very small part of that process.
Oh, that's fantastic. Moving on to you a little, I think.
Yes.
What does Gavin Van Winsen get up to in his spare time? You mentioned, I think you're not really an artist as such, but what do you do to unwind?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same question, how you went from law to being an artist.
I had to keep my sanity somehow.
Okay.
So it was an easy choice in the end, but a lot of sleepless nights, I guess. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, I can only sit on the sidelines and look at artists with awe, because I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I can't even paint a stick figure. In fact, I often joke that the only thing I can paint is the white stuff on the canvas. And even sometimes then it's questionable. So yeah, I can enjoy the art. I've learned to develop my own taste for particular types of art over the years. But for myself, I want to say the cliche. I like long walks on the beach and reading books. But actually I do really love the ocean. And if I could spend my days surfing, I would. And it's a bit frustrating being up here in Joburg and not being able to do that. But yeah, as you know, living in Joburg's not for sissies, and I do quite a bit of cycling to stay sane. Fortunately, the business allows me to do many trips. I can come down and visit artists like yourself, and all under the guise of business. I can spend a few days at the ocean, and I'm trying to do more of that, and hopefully, and it is good. It's a nice thing to be able to do, and I'm hoping to do more of that as.
That sounds good. I think you need to visit some of the great surf spots down on the East Coast as well. World famous.
You've got some great surfing down.
Yeah, we do.
Unfortunately, your waters are quite sharky, which I guess I'll have to toughen up a bit. And
but you'll find them laid back, just like we are.
Okay. So anyway, on your next canvas order, I think I'll do the delivery myself.
We'll show you a few spots, Gavin, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. Well, if anybody wants to know why the business is going down, you can see where it all started from.
Gavin, just to really wrap up, I think we've touched on many things that are going on at the moment, and and the past of your business, but looking ahead, what challenges or projects lie ahead? How do you see the future, or let's say the next year or two, panning out?
Yes. For us, the biggest challenge will be to keep our costing down of the product. We don't want to price ourselves completely out of the market. And we're going to have to be quite smart and ingenious about how we can operate lean and mean. The general sentiment out there is I would say cautiously optimistic, as I obviously get to talk with many artists every day. And at the end of the day, the artist is still, all he can do is paint, and he is still painting. And I'm optimistic. I see guys they're honing their craft. Some are getting big exposure overseas, and I'm quite excited about the art scene. In the manufacturing industry, where there's a lot of doom and gloom, we've only been seeing from our side. We've been consistently busy, and again, hopefully by the grace of God, we can keep it that way. But I think for the next few months, next year, I think we're still on an upward trajectory. We've got such fantastic talent in this country, and guys are doing great work. So yeah, we must all just, I guess, work together. And for us, I think to keep that relationship strong with the artist, to keep on listening to them, to see to never get blasé or to relax, and just keep listening to what their real needs are, and to stay humble, and to stay learning, and to learn from the artist. That is the most important.
I think what you say there about not being complacent and taking action is so important.
Yeah, you can conceive all kinds of weird and wonderful ventures, but at the end of the day, at least for us, we've got to, the way the business started, the way stretching original artworks came about, the way framing came about, was really listening to the artist and seeing, okay, this is their needs, and responding to that, not running away and saying, well, look, this is what we do, and if take it or leave it, but actually trying to, I think underlying it, all of this is trying to help the artist, trying to be on their side, saying, there's an empathy there. We want to help. We want to see how we can come to the party.
Right.
And as you say, as an artist, you can never become complacent, and for us, we can never become complacent.
Well, Gavin, that's been fantastic, and I think we artists are quite lucky to have a company like yours, and producing such world-class materials. I encourage anyone who hasn't tried your materials, give it a go, and I'm sure they'll be won over very quickly.
Thanks, Malcolm. I think we're grateful for the artists that we do have, and we want to look after them. And without the artist, we're nothing. A lot of artists don't know about us. As you say, we're not in the art shop, so hopefully over time we can get to be a bit better known.
Gavin, I want to really thank you very much for being on the show. I'm sure that there are many artists out there very interested in what you guys get up to and the products you make, so you can expect a few calls, I'm sure, in the near future. I want to wish you guys a lot of success and continued growth, and mostly that you get to enjoy what you're doing and also get a chance to do a bit of surfing in the off.
Thanks, Malcolm, for the opportunity. It's been fun. I look forward to us speaking later.
Good, man. Thanks, Gavin. We'll chat again soon. Cheers for now. I want to give a special thank you to Gavin Van Winsen for joining me on the podcast today. It was great having him as a guest. And if you want to find out more about the fantastic products produced by Winsen's Canvases, please visit winsonscanvases.co.za or check them out on Facebook. As always, this podcast brought to you by Learn to Paint with Impact, the comprehensive foundation painting course. In Learn to Paint with Impact, I will go through the foundation for a strong composition and painting. Over 7 hours of video demonstrations and lessons, together with assignments and an ebook that you can download. You can find out more about Learn to Paint with Impact at malcolmdeweyfineart.com and how you can join the course. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and if you enjoyed the episode, please give it a like and a share, and I will see you soon on the next podcast. Cheers for now.